Here at TYT, we recently got into a controversy. If you watch TYT Network, you're thinking, of course, when don't you? Here's the twist though, with our own audience and some of our own contributors. So we're gonna talk that through. Before I bring on our guests to talk about it, I'm gonna show you the original clip of Anna and I talking about this issue, and then we'll discuss. Let's watch.
I'm speculating that she doesn't want to say mothers because mothers is gendered and she's worried about offending birthing people. Like birthing people, really? Come on. For me, it's not even like, oh, I don't want to be inclusive and I don't want to think of, transgender people. It's the phrasing, like it just makes you sound like a weird object that like you're a vessel and nothing more. Like birthing people just sounds weird. Like if I were pregnant and someone referred to me as a birthing person, I would feel like, why are you calling me that? You know what I'm saying? Like
it's gonna drive everyone away from you. And it's gonna lead to a situation where it's harder to win those rights that we're all fighting for, rather than easier to win.
So let me show you the tweet that started that whole controversy in the first place, and then I'll bring in Sandee, talk about it. So it was from Dr. Michelle Morrison. It said, the urgency of this moment is clear. Mortality rates of birthing people are too high, and babies born to Black and Puerto Rican mothers in this city are 3 times more likely to die in their first year of life than babies born to non-Hispanic white birthing people. All right, and now on to talk with us about it is Sandee Lovas. She's a contributor for us at Rebel Headquarters. She's from Canada, a longtime TYT viewer as well, and our first international contributor, which I like a lot. Sandee, great to have you on.
Hi, it's great to meet you.
All right, wonderful. So Sandee, go ahead, kick my ass. What did I do wrong? Tell me what the issue is.
So right now, people who are non-binary, people who are trans men are coming out more and more. And there's actually, it's not that there's an increase in people who identify as this, it's just that they're becoming more comfortable. Like right now, the recent stat is about 20% of Gen Zs actually feel like they are part of the LGBTQ community. So what's happening is we're trying to find new language to help include everyone. I myself am non-binary, so as Anna says that she wouldn't want to be referred to as a birthing person, well, I don't want to be referred to as mother should I have a child. So it's a matter of trying to find a word that includes everyone who's capable of having children, like actually being pregnant, but includes everyone, including people who would identify as mother. It's the same as like you have brother, sister, sibling, mother, father, parent, husband, wife, spouse. You have the gender neutral terms, it doesn't replace any of the other terms, but it includes everyone, even people who don't necessarily identify as that gender.
Okay, so that's great. And I love this because this is not a debate, this is a discussion, so we all understand each other, right? So Sandee, first of all, so I get the sense of the activists in the community, right? So they're not, but again, if I get it wrong, tell me, okay? So they're not saying that we should call all mothers birthing people. They're saying if they want to be referred to as birthing people, then refer to them that way. Is that right?
Correct. We're not saying we're going to replace the word mother, and even the term birthing person or birthing people isn't even settled on. Personally, I use child bearer because again, it's new language, it's going to be clumsy. The woman who tweeted that out, she should have been consistent throughout. But when new language starts, it's always going to be sounding clumsy. The right will never buy into it because they wouldn't no matter what. And the way to get people in the center and the left to actually buy into it is to use it and normalize it. Because we've been through these transformations in language before. We used to only ever say police men, and then it changed to women, police women. But then that was getting confusing because you didn't know which gender they were, you were misgendering, so it became police officer. So it's a matter of trying to find a balance of words that don't necessarily sound clumsy, something that we can all kind of come in on and agree with in the future. But since it is still newer terms, newer language coming up, there is no consensus yet on what those words should be.
So Sandee, as we clarified in another show after that one, there's no issue with us referring to people in the way that they want to be referred, right? So if somebody wants to be referred to as a birthing person or a child bearer as opposed to a mother, I have no issue with that at all, right? But in the context of that tweet, Sandee, it seemed like she was referring to it as a general term for all mothers. And that's where I would say, at minimum, politically, I would not do that. I think that it puts people off, they're confused by it, and especially conservatives. I mean, you're never gonna get conservatives anyway, but maybe conservative independents, right? They're scared of change, right? And all of a sudden, when they hear something so foreign to them, they go, "Oh, hell no, no, no! I'm not. Nobody's going to call me a birthing person. I'm a mother, right?" And especially on an issue like that. So, do you see what I'm saying by the critique of that tweet that refers to mothers in general as birthing people?
Yes, I do, and I understand what you were trying to say in it. It's just in that particular clip, you came across as very dismissive, like saying for the 9 people it's going to include, is it really worth this? But if you look even at your own audience here on TYT, like 7% of adults are identifying LGBTQ+. And since this is a left-leaning network, that percentage watching this is going to be even higher. So if you have, let's say 10% of your audience is LGBTQ+, and a large portion of them are people who are capable of having babies, but don't identify as a woman, it really feels like you just kind of dismiss that whole part of us. Because I do agree right now, the right is using us as a distraction. But it's kind of like throwing a bomb into a crowd so that they can go rob the bank. There are people who are losing their jobs, suffering, that are under constant threat, being harassed. And now children who are transgender are literally being erased because of this legislations that are going through. This is going to cause a higher suicide rate among them, because it doesn't matter how many hugs you can give them, how many words that you can tell them. They are being taken apart bit by bit with this legislation, and it's devastating.
So Sandee, here's what I'm worried about. So first of all, there's a difference between the LGBTQ community. You say it's up to 20% now in Gen Z. I'm not remotely surprised by that. And I've actually been saying on the show for nearly 20 years, the right wing is not necessarily wrong about the cultural wars in that they say, oh my God, if you just allowed people to be gay, a lot more people would be gay. And I always said, yeah, that's true, right? But why are we stopping them from their own true nature? What a weird thing to say. Like don't let them be what they really, really want to be. So it would seem to be against freedom. So I'm perfectly aware of the spectrum, and that if you, the more freedom that we have, of course, more people in the spectrum will be part of the LGBTQ plus community, right? So, but people who are childbearing but don't want to be referred to as mothers, that is not 20%, that is not 7%. That is a very, very small number. Okay, now I understand what you're saying about how my language sounded dismissive, right? And I don't want to be that. But Sandee, if we start calling all mothers birthing people to take into account the feelings of that very, very, very small number, we're going to do more damage to the LGBTQ community because it's going to turn off so many people that, oh, that's it. Well, then I'm not left, because there's no way anybody's going to call me a birthing person. But
again, we're not trying to erase the word mother. We're just trying to add a term that's more inclusive.
Yeah, and Sandee, I hear what you're saying too, because what are you going to do? You have to add a word, right? And you're right, these new words are tough, right? Some are clunky, some are awkward, some are just new, and new sounds, off to some people. But okay, so the most important thing I think that we've established here is that people are not trying to apply it to all mothers. And because if that was the case, I think that would be deeply counterproductive. I'm just keeping it real in a political sense. And then there really isn't that much disagreement. Like if you said to me, I'm gonna have a kid, Cenk, and I want you to call me a childbearer, of course. What am I gonna call you something you don't want to be called? Your name is Sandee Lovas, am I supposed to call you a different name, right? And by the way, the answer is yes for the right wing, right? So when Muhammad Ali and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar changed their names to Muslim names for a long, long time, they would not be called by that name. They would be called by their Christian names. So no, of course we're not going to do that. And I appreciate the opportunity to work these things out. All right, I guess last thing on it, Sandee, is when it is a new word, how do we decide as a community what the new word is, right? Because that is Like you're gonna think one thing makes sense, the other person's gonna think the other one, that sounds awkward, but the other one is good. I'm gonna have a completely different opinion. How do we have a conversation without offending people, but at the same time trying to be inclusive enough to get to the right word that helps the community rather than hurts the community?
Well, it's like any new language in any area. It's whatever just happens to catch on to the biggest population. It's not like you can just go to a certain group of people and poll them because you're going to have multiple different opinions. So like with tech, there's often new words that pop up, and eventually there's just one word that catches on and people coalesce around that. And so that's what it's going to take with this. It's going to take a bit of time. It's going to take people saying clumsy terms, and it's going to take, people actually being willing to try out terms and accepting these new terms.
So Sandee, you have something in how you're referred to that is also challenging for people who are not used to it. Your pronouns are she and her, but on your titles, you're Mr. / Sir and folk, right? So for people who are not familiar with that, that is gonna throw them for a loop, okay? So
well, I'll also go by they, them, but I'm very open about it, and I never get on people's case if they misgender me. That's not an issue for me.
Okay, so that's another thing. Real quick, because we're almost out of time. But I have a sense that the transgender community is the most victimized community in the country. That one's not a sense, that one's real. That's a fact, right? But then oftentimes they'll strike back, and this is the most gross generalization, okay? But I'm trying to have a conversation here. I need to facilitate the conversation, right? By saying, hey, if you mess up the pronouns, etc., that's deeply offensive. But people are just learning these things. Should we give them a little bit of more leeway to take some time to get it right, as long as they're not being condescending and purposely mean, etc.?
Well, it goes a little bit both ways. Like generally, if a person presents one way, like I present female, I'm never going to get upset at somebody referring to me as a lady or a woman. But for some people who maybe present in ways that are unclear, it depends on really what's been happening with them that day too, because maybe they've been purposely misgendered 10 times already, or people have been getting on their case and then somebody just accidentally misgenders them and they've reached their breaking point. So it takes patience and understanding on both sides.
I love this conversation. All right, thank you, Sandee, and everybody check out Sandee on Rebel Headquarters, where she's doing wonderful new videos, and I love that you're a contributor too. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of a community that checks itself and learns and grows together.
This has been great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.